Hey you, welcome back to the channel. And guys, today we're going to review Star Trek Discovery. This will be episodes 9 and going into our season finale. And I just want to say, that as we delved into episode 9, that I think it was probably my least favorite episode of the entire season. I was a little bit disappointed in that because it looked like all of the Star Trek Discovery episodes were actually getting better each week. And I wanted that to keep up, to kind of make up, for a few shakier episodes in the earlier part of the season. Uh, but it was a good setup for going into our season finale. And what we got with that, guys, is we got a lot of information about a planet with these alien creatures. I believe they were called the Pavins, if I'm not mistaken. And the Pavins had this kind of, as we got to see, interesting effect on Lieutenant Commander Saru. If you know, for the first time, it took his abilities, his to be fearful in the sense fear, and changed him a lot to the point he wanted to actually protect the Pavins from the Klingons and any threats to them, as he had pretty much communed with this race. But we also got to discover that the Pavins had this interesting crystal that emitted, I believe it was a type of radiation that they were able to figure out that would, be able to help them determine where the Klingon cloaked vessels were. And so that was obviously very important to the Federation. And they wanted to, with the Pavin's permission, convince them to allow them to use that technology. And they are able to communicate with the Pavins, but they got to find out in that episode that the Pavins basically had a different idea about how they wanted to do things. They basically wanted to bring everyone near to try to resolve the issue, and they actually send out this beacon or this to allow the Klingons to come near. But unfortunately, the Federation understands that when the Klingons get there, they're going to conquer and destroy the Pavins, and the Pavins, were left there unprotected. But what was very interesting as well is Lieutenant Stamos. He seemed to have, after using the spore drive technology and doing the many jumps they had done, we got to find out that Lieutenant Stamos actually had become the original Stamos that we knew him to be before, he used the spore drive. And that's kind of bringing up references back to what we think may end up being the Mirror Mirror episode. And very interesting. A lot of us speculate it will be Jonathan Frakes who will direct that episode. And as I said when I did my video, and be sure to check that out about the best Star Trek movies, their rankings, and if I had agreed with the Rotten Tomato scores on them. I recall Jonathan Frakes being a very good director of Star Trek episodes, The Next Generation, as well as directing one of my favorite Star Trek movies, First Contact. And I thought he did a great job on it. I think they should have given Jonathan Frakes a great deal more directing opportunities, but he will get one here in Discovery. Very excited to see what he does with that, and many of us think it will involve the Mirror Mirror episode. So Stamos is back to himself, and he's letting out some interesting information about, I believe it's Lieutenant Tilly or Cadet Tilly, and he's basically referencing her as the captain. So wherever he's been, maybe on this in this other dimension or the Mirror Mirror universe, maybe their Cadet Tilly is actually a captain, but that's very interesting because then it's a very dramatic change from the character she is in this part of the universe. So the assumption is that Lieutenant Tilly then may actually be her mirror opposite version there, much more forceful, maybe much more stronger character there, and I found that all very very interesting. But we got to see as the rather uh, the discovery was awaiting about the Klingons come there, and now they're faced with the choice to try to protect, or not so much the choice. It's not a responsibility to protect the Pavans from the Klingons who are there now, and we get this very interesting conclusion to episode 9 as we go into episode 10. So again, like I said, guys, I didn't really like this episode much. I felt it drug on a lot. Did get to see some interesting things with Lieutenant Saru, but it was a good setup for going into episode 10 here, our season finale, in which we got to, which I thought was a very strong episode. I did like the season finale. I thought he did a pretty good job with that. And Rob, as we went into that episode, we got to see a lot of things happening with Command Captain Lorca, rather, and Captain Lorca has definitely become one of my favorite characters to see. I like all his scenes pretty much, especially the battle scenes, and he does get a message from Starfleet that he needs to basically, return to Starbase. I believe it's 47, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to stay there, protect the Pavans as well as try to find weaknesses in the Klingon cloaking. And they find out a way to do this by beaming on the Klingon resurrection ship, or I'm sorry, not resurrection ship. I'm thinking of Battlestar Galactica, the sarcophagus ship, which has come out of warp, which came there. And as they do that, they're able to put these trackers in there, which is going to let them know where exactly the Klingon ship is hiding. And throughout this sequence, we get some very interesting things with Lieutenant Ash. And the speculation that he may be Vok is seeming to basically support itself, and I'm leaning a great deal more in that direction. As we got the Klingon, and her name escapes me for some reason, but a lot of very interesting things happened this week with her. She's, as we got to understand, she's had this very involved relationship with Vok, or rather with Lieutenant Ash. And, what comes to mind then is, why is he so important to her? And it's all making sense that Lieutenant Ash has been a changed into a human from Klingon, and I'm under the assumption now that the changes necessary to make him human has actually altered his mind, and whereas he's now, not sure what he is. He's more or less seeming to be, or I believe they're going to use him like a sleeper agent. She's gonna, and they'll be able to wake him up once he's discovered, got in good enough with the Starship Discovery crew to where he can then get all the secrets back to the Klingon some kind of way, maybe lead the Klingon Empire. So that's my thoughts on it. But what I just found very interesting, and it harkens back to one of my earlier videos, and that had to do with FCC regulations when Star Trek Discovery was first coming out, and that was, because they were going this route, were we going to see a lot stronger language and nudity even? as this was now part of a streaming service and they weren't under strict FCC regulations. And what we did get to see that we've never seen on Star Trek before, we've never seen a Star Trek to this degree, is we got to see a new Klingon sex scene with a human. And this was a kind of weird fetish erotic fantasy type thing going on, and I'm sure a lot of people found that interesting. But as we go back to like Star Trek: The Next Generation, several of the movies that were done, like the Generations movies, and look back at Commander Worf, he had talked about the sexual rituals and practices of Klingons, and how that humans couldn't handle it. And we get to see this interesting sex scene between Lieutenant Ash and this Klingon female, and it's very intense. And you can tell that Tyler's pretty much being, or Ash is pretty much being tortured through the scene, and he's perceiving it as more of this torturous act in which he's suffering a post-traumatic stress disorder from because of the intensity of it. He's suffering from it, and he's saying that this was necessary for his training in order for him to stay alive. And it seems that Ash has become quite human throughout this ordeal, from possibly the Klingon Vok. I'm just again assuming was all necessary to make him the perfect spy, so that he could not slip up. He really feels that he is a human, but I'm pretty sure they have something planted on him that can trigger him to become Klingon, much like a sleeper agent. So I found all that very interesting, guys. Star Trek, for the first time in this area, has pushed the envelope, and we got to see all this erotic type thing going on. And all in all, guys, I did find this episode quite good as a mid-season finish. Didn't like episode 9 and a few others throughout the season. And, I only want to say that Star Trek Discovery has the makings. It has all of the makings to be a great TV show and one of the best Star Treks. And right now, it's neither of those. It's not a great TV show. It's not a good Star Trek show. But that is because of mistakes, I think, that are being made, episodes that are being added that don't need to be added. There are several episodes I don't even feel needed to be in here to make this story. But we got them, and we got to live with them. And so, we get to see in the final scene, Stamos and Lorca go through this very interesting conversation after they successfully been able to get these trackers, or getting these devices on board the sarcophagus ship, be able to know the location of the Klingon ship whilst it was cloaked, and fire torpedoes on it, destroying it. But as they're trying to head back to the starbase that they were originally supposed to go through, as Lorca and Stamos have this conversation, he's letting Lorca know that, hey, you don't have to warp back to the starbase. I can just jump you there. And he's like, oh, well, you're tired, this, and do you really want to do that? You don't have to do that. But Stamos is letting him know, yes, he wants to do it because that's going to be his last jump. Now he needs to go on the observation, because obviously he's been through all these various places. He's switched characters. He's now switched back to himself. And, he wants to further investigate, understudy what happened, what was going on. And so it ends there. And I thought that was a good episode. I thought that the episode 9 involving the Pavins, I thought that could have all been condensed here into this mid-season finale episode, and we could have moved on from there and not got last week's episode. But guys, let me know how you're feeling about Star Trek Discovery. It does have a season 2. Does it have the potential, to you all, for it to be that great Star Trek show? And I know that right now we are getting a lot of people that are coming aboard Star Trek Discovery, unlike before. And I think, of course, that's due to these episodes getting better as it went on. But again, it could have done that from the beginning. We could have cut a lot of these bad episodes, kept the good episodes in. I don't know who does these screenings to these shows, but I wish they'd give me a job and let me get in there and try to decide what stays and what goes. I think I could really do a pretty good job and kind of have you guys kind of support some of the direction I think I would take personally with some of these episodes, because it can be a great show. It has great movie. It doesn't even feel, many times it doesn't even feel like on the scale of a TV show, which is I can see where all that money went in this production. They've got everything right, but they just got this very weak, very strange, and unnecessary storytelling going on. And all they need to do is get rid of it. This could be a great show. But anyway, guys, that's my review for episodes 9 and 10, or 9 in our mid-season finale. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.